Hello, good to see you, girl. How you doing?
I am very well. How are you? I'm a bit fed up with the weather because suddenly it's turned to rain. We had thunder and hail yesterday.
Yeah, my garden was white a couple of days ago with hail. Unbelievable. And
Yeah.
you think, compare that with how it was a few days ago, and it was like the tropics, wasn't it? Brilliant.
I know,
Cool.
and I was right. I was saying it was all because of the lockdown and the fact that we weren't using, we humans had sort of lowered our game,
Yeah.
and we were allowing nature to thrive. But clearly, there was no science in that at all.
Anyway, we're in a time of terrible turmoil at the moment, one way or the other,
Oh
aren't we?
my God, absolutely, all over the world in various
Mm,
different ways, and in different ways combined, which is very odd.
yeah, yeah,
It's one of the,
exactly.
we've said this before, but it's one of the few times that you're actually almost glad to be as old as you are.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. There's
You're like
the younger people
front
just
door and
concerned about at the moment. Yeah. So let's try and be cheerful, shall we? And do something that we really enjoy, talking to people who are really interesting. And in a moment, we'll be talking to Lee Boardman, the actor. Such a recognisable face on television, isn't he? From various things, including Brexit, the Uncivil War, and Coronation.
they've been
Loads.
nominated for a BAFTA for that one, haven't they?
Indeed, yeah. And we're going to be talking to him a little later. But first of all, we're going to chat to an old friend of ours who we've known, do you realise, for the best part of 40 years.
No.
40 years we've known this guy. We worked together in the early stage of breakfast television at TVAM. Should we welcome him in?
Absolutely. Welcome, and it's wonderful to talk to the one and only Timmy Mallett.
Hi, Timmy.
Hello, Timmy. Oh, yes, there he is in his studio. Hi.
Greetings. Hello, you.
Oh, there he
Oh,
is.
my goodness. It's lovely to see you. Where are you? And are you locked down? And presumably that means you're getting on with a lot of painting.
Yeah, I am. This is my little office. Where are you? Because Anne, you look like you're in the upstairs or downstairs loo or something.
I am. Excuse me. This is an upstairs bedroom that I've been turning into a studio, a television studio.
Yeah,
So,
right.
and I mean it.
Typical Mallett. Starts off with an insult, eh?
There's the emulsion paint, because all of these walls were a different colour a couple of days ago. And I've been putting up paintings and stuff like that. It may be a cupboard to you, but it's a TV studio to me.
Well, that's lovely, Anne. This I don't paint the walls. I paint the pictures. These are a couple of my paintings I've been doing during lockdown, actually. So I set myself the target at the beginning of lockdown to paint the arrival of spring 2020 on the basis that this is the most lovely, gorgeous spring any of us can remember. And right at the very beginning of spring, I saw this view,
Oh my goodness.
and painted the avenue of daffodils with the big beech trees. I live in the Chilterns, and this was on my bike ride, my exercise bike ride. And then at the end of May, pardon me, the end of May, I turned my attention to the colour that I get in my garden, which is the poppies. The big giant orange poppies come out the last week of May. And so I set up the canvas and the easel actually in my garden and painted it, and did that live on Facebook, which was rather fun, actually, seeing people's comments as the colours emerged. Yeah, good fun.
And Timmy, people associate you obviously with broadcasting over the years, but painting is very much your livelihood, is it these days?
I paint all the time, and my paintings are in galleries all over the country, and it's a real privilege and a pleasure to share the process with people. I paint what I see, and as you would expect, they'll be colourful, but I suppose colourful impressionist landscapes. I love the impressionist artists, and we understand them, and I like this idea that everything changes dependent on the light. And it's just been a glorious spring for the colours and the richness of what we've been able to see.
And I remember going to the launch of one of your exhibitions in Birmingham a few years ago now. And I have to say, I was blown away with how wonderful the paintings were.
Well, thank you so much. That's very kind.
Yeah, but I tell you what, Timmy, all of those years ago when we knew you, walking around assaulting people with a big foam mallet, You never said a word about painting. Were you painting then?
Well, you clearly weren't watching closely enough, actually, Anne, because I would take the paints with me on whack-a-day filming trips. And whenever we were short of a story, the director would say, tell you what, Timmy, why don't you paint us a picture and tell us what you're doing? And I would narrate a story about where we happen to be and paint a picture. And of course, the crew would love that, because that meant they hadn't got to lug the gear anywhere. You just set it up and they got time for a cup of tea, a sticky bun, and enjoy the whole process. But I would carry watercolors with me. On my latest big adventure, I carried both watercolors and acrylic paints and set off on an adventure in the spring of 2018 to cycle across Europe on the Camino de Santiago.
Now you'll have to tell us why, because clearly there is a brilliant and amazing and very poignant story to this.
Well, the Camino de Santiago is an ancient pilgrimage route that dates back 1,000 years to even just before you were born, Nick. And in those days, people would travel from their home right across Europe to Santiago de Compostela in northwest Spain, to the cathedral where the bones of Saint James are supposedly buried. He's the brother or cousin of Christ. And if we go back to the age of Chaucer, when he's writing the Canterbury Tales, roughly 250,000 people a year would set off from their home and walk across Europe to Santiago and back again. Usually they'd be, searching for a cure for their condition or whatever. But St. Francis of Assisi, for instance, walked the route in 1212, probably talking to the birds and the animals. And I decided I would really like to do this from home on my bike. There's my Timmy bike, and that's me at the top of the Pyrenees, having pedaled up one of the great mountain ranges of Europe. And as you would realize, you can see there that it wasn't an easy journey. It was quite a struggle. I cycled in spring expecting the glorious colors, but instead I got the beast from the east. And it was a real massive challenge. But I was inspired to do this by my brother. Now, Nick and Anne, you've met my brother Martin, my Down syndrome brother Martin, who with language and learning difficulties had an ability to engage with everybody he met along the way.
Oh, look, there you are together. That's lovely.
That's my dear brother Martin,
Your big brother.
Yeah, that's right, my big brother. And he would say, you and me, I'm happy. And I love that phrase. It reminds us that all we need to be happy is just to be together like we are today. Yeah. Now, Martin, at the age of 64, succumbed to dementia, which is a wretched disease. And a week before I set off on my big adventure to reach my potential, inspired by Martin, dear Martin died. And at his funeral, I found these.
Name tags.
You know, the things that your mum sews into your clothes to make sure they're yours.
Yes.
Well, I found a bunch of these Martin Mallett name tags, and my big brother Paul said, I wonder if you can use those somehow to mark your journey. And so that's exactly what I did. I took these name tags, and everywhere I came to somewhere special, it might be a view, a castle, a church, a vineyard, or with somebody who'd done me a good turn, I'd leave a Martin Mallett name tag. And I've written about this in my book, Utterly Brilliant, My Life's Journey. And it
Utterly Brilliant.
Well, it's a Timmy title, isn't it?
It is.
Front is a very pink.
Oh, it's a map.
Yeah, it's a map showing my route across Europe. But the thing is that in this map is every single point in Europe where I've left a Martin Mallett name tag, so that from the comfort of your own sofa, you can see the exact GPS, and you can zoom in on your tablet or whatever and see what it looks like. And it was a profoundly moving way of recognizing the ability of, even with any language and learning difficulty, any of our things that we think we can't do, reaching your potential is easy. It just means, Anne, you've only got to be the best Anne Diamond in the world. And that's like, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah. And even Nick, look at going. God,
you mean even?
Even Nick, you can be the best Nick Owen in the
Yeah,
world.
of course he can. But Timmy, you sent me a video last night, which I'd love to share with everybody, of one of the name tag moments. Let's just have a look at this now. It's where you actually put it. I think it was a church that obviously has some significance.
No, it doesn't. It's just a chapel. It's a chapel I come across.
Let's have a look, because it's very, very poignant, because it puts Martin in that spot. I think we can see
I've wrapped Martin's name tag around the handle here. Here's the bell up there, and now Martin. There you go. That's a little Martin Mallett moment. And I love the way that bell just sounds and sounds and sounds. You me, my baba. Well done, Martin.
that's
Martin, oh, Timmy, that is wonderful.
Where was that?
It's a church with an unpronounceable name on a road, and I came to it and I saw the bell out there. Now, Martin and I were bell ringers. We ring the bells in our church, and I liked the fact there was the cable, so I wrapped his name tag in it. And the first time I heard it was then, because that's when I just pulled it the once, and that bell sounds into eternity. And it reminds me that, you know, people that you love are with you forever. Oh my goodness me. So I read about Martin and how he with his...
So Timmy, being sort of positive and optimistic is very much part of your personal religion, isn't it?
Well, I think you've got to make the most of every day, haven't you? And actually, that's not that difficult if you just say, right, I'm going to make the most and smile at every opportunity. In fact, I've got a little present for you today.
Oh, yeah.
Remember these?
Yes.
Way.
Oh.
That's a Wide Awake Club t-shirt for a 5-year-old. So that's for you. And this one's for you. Here you go. Here's your Timmy on
Oh my goodness. How many have you got?
I found all sorts of things in my collection, and I'm delighted that, you know, Pinky Punky.
Punky, of course, yes.
He's 30 years old this year.
And he has been places.
Well, you know, how many soft toys last for 30 years?
I know, that's incredible. That reminds me of the time that and now I never knew the story. How did you get to the point where you actually assaulted Margaret Thatcher with Pinky Punky? What happened?
I was invited to the House of Commons Christmas party for the children of MPs. And at the party, suddenly the Prime Minister arrived, and it was Margaret Thatcher. And she said, "What's that?" I said, "It's Mallett's mallet." And she said, "What does it do?" What a question to ask. She's got a head. I've got the mallet. Here you go. But the thing about this photo that I love is the bloke in the background. He's got this expression on his face. It's, oh my God, he's just hitting the Prime Minister. I found that's not the only Prime Minister and the only female Prime Minister I've met, because Theresa May is my MP. And when I announced I was going to cycle the Camino, one of the things in the Middle Ages was you couldn't do it without the permission of your lord of the manor and your parish priest. So I got the bishop, who said, "Good on you, Timmy, you're a nutcase." And I got a lovely letter from Prince William, and Theresa May said, "I'll come to your house. I want to hear about the Camino, because Philip and I are keen walkers, and one day we'd like to walk that." And all I can think of is, that's surely going to be a whole lot sooner than later. But God bless her for turning up and spending the time to hear about it. And when I told her about Martin, she said, "Yeah, I know about your brother. And all we have to do is, like him, be the best we can be." Wow.
Oh, and she came out to see you. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, it was a really special moment. And this has caught on, this idea of setting yourself a target in life. I'm a big believer that, try the best you can to do the best you can do, but set yourself a target, because, you know, these are the golden years, aren't they? These are the years where we've got our health and our fitness, and we're able to set ourselves a target and have a go. So I fully intend to continue doing adventures like this for as much as I can. And now I'm going to send you a copy of my book, you two.
Oh, yes, please. But Timmy, let's just reflect on when we first got to know each other, when we were all working together at the dawn of breakfast television. They were happy, exciting days, weren't they?
Without a doubt, just the finest ever, the best place I ever worked. For the way our boss, Bruce Gingell, said to us, "Get out there, fella, and have a go." And he said, when you're thinking that you've done enough with Mallett's Mallet, he said, that's when people are just beginning to recognize it and realize it. He said, what I like with you, Timmy, he said, a wide-eyed wonder at the world.
Oh,
and I think that's right. And I think we all had that. We had a let's try it. There was nothing else. We had 4 channels. And it was all brand new, so let's just try it. And I am eternally grateful for the opportunities that Whack-A-Day and the Wide Awake Club and TVAM in general gave me, and set me on the road to all sorts of things. Hey, look,
including having a #1 hit.
God, yeah. 30 years ago, I recorded that, Nick. 30 years ago this weekend.
Let's remind everybody what it was. It was a remake of Itsy Bitsy
Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini.
I mean, what on earth made you think of it? And how did it become so successful? Tell us the story.
Well, it's not my idea. I give that credit to Andrew Lloyd Webber. He was the producer, and he said to me, I'd really like to record it and I want you to sing it. And I said, well, look, I'm not really a singer. I've got a mallet and I'm entertaining in the mornings. I'm on all this week. And he said, well, do you want to have a go? I said, well, I'd like to, I could do, but, you know, I'm off on Friday filming for Whack-A-Day for a month. He said, well, that leaves us tomorrow.
Yeah.
On the following day, on literally the 30th of 1990, I recorded it. And when I came back I took away the cassette, came back and it was zooming up the chops. There's Kylie.
Yeah, that's a page from your book, isn't it?
Yeah, there's Kylie with her wacky plaster going, I should be so wacky. And Andrew Lloyd Webber, nice and calm. I mean, one of us is bonkers and it ain't me.
Listen, you are well matched.
and #1 around the world. I think
7 little girls sitting in the backseat.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was the follow-up. I had an album. I've got an album. You know, there's just up there is my album. Honestly, it's an album, Mallet. Yeah.
No, it was wildly successful. And what has happened to those 2 ladies?
Oh, Dawn and Annie. Annie has become a very successful actress, wonderful on the left, and Dawn on the right there. She is now Mrs. Barlow, Gary Barlow's wife.
Gary Barlow's wife.
Really?
How did it turn out?
Perfect.
That's wonderful.
My goodness, you've met some people, haven't you?
Well, I've met Anne and Nick, and that's pretty high up on the whole list of great people I've met and worked with.
Yeah, but don't be shy, because you've also bumped into some, you know, mega names, and they've turned around and said, "Can I have your autograph?" Haven't they?
Yeah.
Go on, tell us.
Well, you remember in 1987, when it was 20 years ago today, Sergeant Pepper taught the band to play.
Oh, yes.
And they had a big reception down at Abbey Road Studios. And I went along in a nice and colourful Timmy type of jacket. I think I looked something like that. Like this.
Very Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah. And Paul McCartney walked in and he goes, "Hello, Timmy. Can I have your autograph?"
Wow.
And I stand there thinking, have I heard that right? And they're surrounded by people from the press and the media who all say, "Who's he?" And Paul says, "No, come on, up into the control room. I want that autograph." So I'm there with my Timmy pick like this, say, and who to? He said, "Oh, give me 2." He said, "One's to my nephew, yeah, and one's to me."
Oh.
Wow.
I know, isn't
That's
it?
not a bad little story, that is it?
One of those
No, here's the thing, Nick. Nobody had a camera. You know, it was before the days when we all had a phone with us with a camera. So, you know, you'll have to take my word for it or ask Sir Paul. But there's no picture of the occasion. I just love.
I tell you what, I have got a picture of though, because a lot of people have been tweeting about this. Is that way back in your Piccadilly radio days? You were apparently you had a very successful evening program. I'm told it was really worth listening to, and your studio assistant, if I can call him that, was one and only Chris Evans.
Yeah, I gave him his first job. He came to me as a little 17-year-old. There we are at Cinderella Rockefellers in Bolton, and doing the DJ. We're being DJs. He's lugging the record box around because that's a big heavy box of records. So here you go. I gave him a name. A nickname was Nobby No Level. And the thing is, whenever we meet, it's always hello Nobby, and he goes hello boss. It's funny that, you know, nearly
things stick, don't they?
Yeah, 35, 40 years later, you go, wow, that's. I love that. I love that. You know, it's the way that we would share. You kindly it would invite me onto your sofa at the end of Whackaday. You remember?
Yeah.
Good Morning Britain would finish, and in the ad break, the three cameramen would spin around to my studio, which was the other side of Good Morning Britain, and we had two flats. Magic's cage in the middle. The three cameras were there. I'd do Whackaday for you know, half an hour, 40 minutes, and at the end of it, in the ad break, the cameras would swing back to the sofa where you two would come back in from having had your breakfast or your morning meeting, and we would sit on the sofa together, and we've got a minute and a half to fill where we're going to plug what's on tomorrow. And it was always one of these things where you'd try and tell me about somebody really interesting, like a politician coming in, and I'd say, no, forget that, because tomorrow we're going to be doing blah, 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 blah. And if you interrupt, you'll get a malady.
But you see, you've just painted the picture. We were a family. And I think that's why when we get together now, and Nick and I have been talking to all sorts of people, right from Chris Tarrant, right through to all of the people who were there in the early days, we were really a family, weren't we?
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Because it was quite tough at the beginning, I think it makes you that much closer. It sort of cements relationships more, because it was early days of breakfast television, obviously, and it struggled at the beginning and then became absolutely massive. And that memory is so powerful because of what we went through together.
And that's why the friendship lasts forever, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the difficult times, or challenging times, exciting times, we stay in contact. And, you know, it's such a privilege to be joining you on this wonderful show that you've got. I'm really proud of what you're doing here. I think it's brilliant.
I know.
Well, Timmy, it's been lovely talking to you, old son. It really has, hasn't it, Annie?
Oh, yeah, I want one of your paintings, but Nick tells me I can't afford one.
Oh, couldn't begin to.
No, apparently you are, like, renowned, which means expensive.
Look, the nice thing is that the Camino paintings, there's a number of those that are now in limited edition prints and very, very affordable. If you go to my art website, malletspalette.co.uk, good name for it, isn't it? Mallett's Palette.
Yes, brilliant.
Who thought of that? I wonder. You know, you can see the prints there, and they're lovely, and they come mounted and framed, and they're absolutely glorious, and they cost peanuts. So
I can't congratulate you enough on that. I think that you have such a pedigree of broadcasting, but to look at your art is just a delight. It really is.
So many strings to your bow, son. Congratulations, and thanks for taking time to chat to us today. We really appreciate it.
It's been lovely, Timmy. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure and my privilege, and God bless you both.
And stay safe.
A pleasure. Going to send you a copy each of my book.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
See you, Tim. Bye-bye.
Ta-da!
Ta-da. Ta-da indeed. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Doesn't it just stir up some lovely memories, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, what a
I mean, just the children's programming at TVAM with Timmy and Roland Ratt and Tommy Boyd and Michaela Strack and Arabella Warner, James Baker, lots of people who or played such a part in making such a successful station. It's lovely to relive those days with Timmy, isn't it?
Yes, and they were all of those names you mentioned, they were all real talent, which is why they're still around and they're still working and they're still doing extraordinary things. Gosh.
Yeah, proud to have been part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So should we speak to our next guest? I'm really looking.
Yes, because he's another actually brought up in the same region, another Stockportian, another Mancunian, a very, very proud Mancunian, I think. But he's also somebody at the moment who's
a recognisable face on telly. My goodness, everywhere.
Hot to trot at the moment because the latest drama that we know of that he was in has now been nominated for a BAFTA. So let's welcome Lee Boardman. Hello there, Lee. Oh, there he is. Oh my goodness.
Well, hello.
Oh gosh, you look so well and cool.
I look like a Greek shipping magnate, even in a midlife crisis, is what I look like. It's all right to be honest about it.
Are you in Los Angeles or something at the moment?
No, I'm not. I'm in the UK in lockdown.
Whereabouts do you live these days? In Cheshire?
Yeah, I live in Cheshire. Yeah, it's the longest period I've ever spent at home. It's been fantastic. Sitting in the garden. It's like being on holiday.
Well, look, the first thing we ought to say is congratulations to everybody involved in Brexit, the
uncivil war.
The uncivil war. Yeah.
Because it's been nominated for a BAFTA. And oh yeah, of course, and it starred the amazing, I was going to call him Dominic Cumberbatch, but you get the feeling. Benedict Cumberbatch as Dominic Cummings.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I mean, you couldn't ask for more publicity at the moment, could you, with the particular lead character still being so in the news?
Well, this is it. I think we're all hoping for a little sequel to be penned, you know. There might be one on the cards, who knows?
It's got a chance, hasn't it? What a part that was for you, though, wasn't it? Playing Aaron Banks, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a great role. And I mean, Nina Gold is the casting director who is just one of the great casting directors, and she's always been really supportive and kind to me. All the, you know, lots of work on my CV has come through Nina, and she sort of got me in, and I had to shave my beard off for the first time in 20 years and was horrified by the face that was underneath it. And I wanted to pack on a few pounds, so my wife and I went to Santorini. And I put my back out just before we went. It was terrible. So I basically lay down in the sun in Santorini for a while, eating Greek food and drinking alcohol. It was fantastic.
Oh,
it turned out.
I tell you what, you do look mighty sinister in that photo we've just shown.
I know. Oh, that's even more.
And that one.
Look at that one.
Oh dear.
The lack of dignity.
Lee, what's it like as an actor, bearing in mind you do so many things that are fictitious? When you're doing something, it's a real story and a current story and a controversial story about a living person. You're playing a living person. Yeah. How difficult? I mean, it must be a very different sort of game, isn't it, for you, that one?
I mean, it is different. It is different. I mean, I didn't meet Mr. Banks, although he contacted me a couple of ways to sort of say, let me take you out for some vodka and what have you. And I sort of I was in the process of we were about to start, so it was really full on. But I think that Ben met Dominic Cummings. I think as part of his research, Benedict met Dominic Cummings.
Yeah.
So there is that pressure, because you have to kind of, although it is, you know, James Graham, the writer's spin on it's his take on who these people are. I had to just sort of do a lot of research, a lot of reading. He had a very particular kind of voice that I sort of exaggerated a little bit. He's got a kind of a nasally quality to his voice. So there is a lot of pressure. And I know that Ben felt a lot of pressure with the kind of the accent, because he was like, you know, I know Dominic Cummings is from Durham. So it's a case of how much of the accent do you put in?
Yes, he put a little spin on it, didn't he? But only
absolutely. Yeah. So I think it was incredibly difficult, but we all went under deep cover. I mean, they had to shave my hairline back at both sides, and then they dyed my hair. So I was walking, I felt really low the day I came out after they'd Bic razored my hair back and dyed it. And I was kind of wandering around with a big round face, and I just thought, oh, I look terrible. And then I saw Benedict Cumberbatch, who'd had his head shaved on the top and had a Bobby Charlton. And I thought, oh, I don't feel too bad now. Look at that.
Michael Farage there.
My goodness me. He was wonderful. Paul Ryan played Farage, and on our first day of rehearsal, the director Toby Haynes said to me, "Look," he said, "you know, I want you to you need to get to know Paul very, very quickly. So I took him out to BAFTA, and we got, over the course of about 6 hours, we got absolutely paralytically drunk and ended up weeping outside on Piccadilly, hugging each other. So it was quite a first day.
Yeah, typical lovers, eh?
Exactly.
So
I think people will probably know you most from Coronation Street, would you say, or do you think you moved on from that now?
Well, yeah, possibly. I mean, I think in the UK, you know, I was in that show for 6 months. Is all. It's one of the shortest jobs I've ever done, and I kind of left after 6 months. But I think because at the time it was just before everybody kind of started getting skyboxes and hundreds of channels, so they still had like 18 million viewers at the time. There was like 4 channels really at the time, so it was pretty full on, you know. And I think that if anybody got 18 million viewers now, I mean, it's a sort of it's just unthinkable, isn't it? You know.
What was it like being in the street?
Oh, I had an amazing time. I remember when I first, because I was doing theatre in London, you know, I was living in London doing like kind of classical theatre, and then I just got a call out of the blue to say, you know, you've been offered it. I didn't audition for choreo, I just got offered it because I'd been in a series called Band of Gold.
Oh yes, I remember that.
And they'd seen that. Band of Gold was my first TV job, so they'd seen that. They offered me choreo, and then within like a couple of weeks, I was on this set. And I remember one night, I just sort of finished one of the scenes that I was doing, and I went into the green room, and I was sort of sat there all quiet and looking around. And there's all these, like, they used to have these chairs in the green room, which were like the chairs you get in old people's homes, you know, those high backed sort of chairs. And in one chair was Bill Roach, who played Ken Barlow. In another was Eileen Derbyshire, who was Emily Bishop. Like all of these old, and then me. And I just thought, because I grew up in Manchester, you know, so I just was like, look at, oh my Lord, look at that.
That is
like a baby, a little baby.
Yeah.
It was just such a massive shock to the system, you know.
Very exciting. We actually, I mean, when we were doing Breakfast Telly and Good Morning with Anne and Nick in the 90s, we were lucky enough to meet loads of actors from Coronation Street. It was always a thrill because they were so well known. I mean, people like Bill Roach, you know. I mean, he is Ken Barlow, isn't he? 60 odd years he's been doing that. But to be chatting to him on the sofa, and Pat Phoenix, Elsie Tanner, who became a really good friend, didn't she, Annie? I mean, she was a regular of our program. And there's loads of others that we were so lucky to get to know from Coronation Street.
And you know what? They were
working with them. Wow.
There was such a gorgeous bunch, particularly the old guard of the show. And I mean, you know, when I met my wife on that show, Jenny, and when we first got together and we got married, and we found out that we were having a baby, and Annie Kirkbride, who played Deirdre, was one of the first people we kind of told, and we went to stay with her and Dave, her husband, at a villa in Spain, and it was just kind of, they were so used to being in this gargantuan kind of job, and they were just all so lovely. You know, Bill Roach is such a gentle soul. He's a lovely man, you know. And I've worked with his son Linus since.
That's right.
Yeah. How young does he look still?
Bill looks younger than me. I mean, he does.
You're looking very well, I must say. You're looking very sun-kissed. You must have been out.
Yeah. I'll tell you something I particularly enjoyed was Bancroft. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy, wasn't it, Bancroft? It was. I think everybody thought, what's this police thing with this? But it was it was described as sort of a gothic thriller, you know, which is a more apt description of it. And I thought Sarah Parrish was just great in it. We had great fun.
It was brilliant, wasn't she? Absolutely. What's been your favourite thing to do? I mean, we talked about the street, I know, but what's the thing you're most proud of?
Do you know, I've been so fortunate to have had a really good kind of run these last 20 years or so. One of my favourites was I did a series called Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Yes.
Written by Carmel Morgan. That was a wonderful series, and it was playing kind of almost against type. You know, I was cast as this kind of very bitchy model agent, and I loved that. But that aside, I think it's got to be Brexit was wonderful.
Yeah, really.
An HBO series called Rome that I did, which I lived in Italy for 2.5 years doing that. That was,
I know, which my sons absolutely love, but I could never watch. It was too bloody and gory for me.
You don't, you know, there's a couple of things that you don't want to have a look at that belong to me. There's a couple of things.
Yeah?
So
Is that right?
I wouldn't watch it if I were you.
That was my special subject at university, you know, Lee.
Was it?
Ancient history, yeah.
Oh, please don't test me now, Nick. I can't cope with that pressure. You start testing me.
No, obviously I'm very intrigued by it. But you've done such a wide range of things like Death in Paradise, Midsummer Murders, haven't you? Those sort of things.
Death in Paradise was such a lovely gig because it was the first series and nobody really knew what it was. So my agent called me on a Thursday afternoon. I was driving into Knutsford, and he said, "Do you want to go to the Caribbean on Monday?" I said, "Yeah."
Just like that.
He said, "No, don't say yes yet. Read the script first." And I said, "No, I want to read the script. I'm going to go on Monday." So it was that.
How long do they use you out there for? I love Death in Paradise, and I watch it and I think, what a wonderful gig. I wonder how long it takes to film.
Well, I was out there for 2.5 weeks and I only had 5 filming days. So I basically sat at a beach club with Colin Salmon and Alistair Petrie, and we just sort of, I just sunbathed for 2 weeks. It was wonderful, wonderful gig.
Brilliant. Tell us about your theatre schools.
Yeah. Well, we have 2 acting schools. Yeah, called Actor Tribe. And their kind of genesis was the actor Alfred Molina is a really good pal of mine.
Yeah.
And Fred was the inspiration for the school, because he was always saying to me, you know, I tell you stories, and when you get older, it's your job to tell younger actors these things. And for 2,000 years, this is what we're a tribe of actors. And it just sort of, you know, got into my psyche. So there's us with Peter Kay, who came in.
Yeah.
God love him. So we set up, and it is the absolute joy of our life. So we have one in Didsbury in Manchester and one in Knutsford in Cheshire, and we've got about 250 students, and it's incredible. And a lot of them are getting work. And we had a couple of our students were in a movie that won an Oscar a couple of years ago, which was just brilliant. And they'd never been on a set in their life, you know. And we kind of we knew somebody who was doing a film, so I spoke to this person and said, look, you know, we've got a couple of people that might be really good for this, and they cast them, and they were on the Oscars. I mean, it's been a ride, you know. It's been amazing.
I know you were very busy with it over the weekend. How are you coping with that in lockdown? How can you get that going?
It's difficult, and I mean, you guys know the technological difficulties of working with Zoom, you know. So we've had to kind of shift operations to Zoom. There's with Mark Warren in the middle. You know, Mark Warren there. He's playing Van der Valk at the moment on ITV.
Right.
Yes.
Mark's one of my best friends in the world. So yeah, we've shifted it over to Zoom, and we've been doing a lot of masterclasses on Zoom. So I've been getting. I got Ian Bartholomew in, who's a very old pal of mine and a great old theatre actor who's currently the bad guy in Corrie. So they all think, oh, he's this guy who's just been in Corrie recently as this kind of domestic abuser, but he's had a career for 45 years. You know, it's like Shylock at the RSC. So I've been getting a lot of we get a lot of professional actors in to talk to our students, and they're a joy. They're an absolute joy. We go from the age of 7, and I think our oldest is I think he's in his 60s. You know, so
wow, really?
We have a wide range.
It's old business, though, isn't it? Being an actor.
It's a tough old business, Nick. It is.
Yeah, not with a face like yours. Your face has not been off the TV from when I,
very distinctive.
It is a very distinctive face.
That's what my agent would say. Very distinctive. It's a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
What's the buzz in the business at the moment? I mean, I imagine that you'd like to be out filming your next series of whatever.
Or theatre and anything.
Is anyone saying when you might be able to work again, or what?
There's been a blueprint that has been kind of presented to people recently in the community that saying that there's a way in which, I mean, my next job is a job, an American job, but it's being shot in the UK. So there is a kind of blueprint in place for managing it. We don't know when it's going to begin. It was supposed the original date was going to be early June, but obviously that's not going to happen. It's going to probably be July or August, but it's very, very difficult. I think it's easier when you're filming to kind of maintain the social distancing. It is slightly easier because they can work it in a way so it is easier. I think theatre, I worry for theatre, just because it's so dependent on the audience, you know, rocking up at the theatre, and I don't know how they're going to do that. I mean, one of my best pals is an actor who was in a musical in the West End called Come From Far Away, and they were literally just one night the producers walked on stage at the half and said, we're having to close, you know, and it's a successful show, an Olivier award-winning show, so they were literally cut loose that night. and they don't know when they're going to go back. And
no, I mean, it's one thing being able to persuade and make sure that everybody is looked after for filming. It's quite another getting enough people confident enough to go into a theatre where you're crammed next to somebody else and you're all breathing over each other and sneezing over each other. It's going to take a long time before that confidence builds again, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, you know, I've no idea what is going to happen. I can only hope that we can, you know, I know so many actors that have been hit so hard by this pandemic, and I know that every industry has. It's just that to find a way in theatre particularly is going to be a real challenge, you know.
Yeah.
Because you're right, people lose confidence as well, don't they, you know?
What's next for you in the next few days? What's happening? Have you got something lined up?
I've got something for when the lockdown's over, but the next few days for me are going to involve, if the sun comes out again, I'm going to be sitting in the garden with possibly a nice rosé in my hand. Or, you know, not doing very much.
Mm.
Really. We've got people commenting in, and I'm just not sure. Here we go.
Oh dear.
Oh, here we are. Actor Tribe is not just an acting school, we are also a family. Lee and Jenny invest themselves in their students.
Ah, that's nice.
So many students have done so well in the industry thanks to Lee and Jenny.
I've just been posting that underneath while I've been talking to you.
Oh,
I've been posting those.
I wondered. Isn't that lovely, though?
That is lovely. Sorry?
Yeah. You are
multi-skilling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Lee, it's been an absolute joy to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you can get back out to your swimming pool and your vodka and all the rest of it. You look as though you just live in the
Yeah.
I'm naked from the waist down, so please don't be misled. You know, it's all from the neck up.
This is before the watershed.
Yeah,
sorry.
Whatever watershed it is. No, it's been wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much. When are the BAFTAs? When will we know how you've done?
Do you know what? I've got no idea, and it's kind of sod's law that the year that we're nominated for best single drama is when everybody's in lockdown, so nobody will be going.
It'll have to be virtual. It'll be on Zoom again.
It's going to be a virtual ceremony. Yeah, so I'm not sure when it is actually. Even though I'm a member, I'm not sure when the BAFTAs
we've got everything crossed for you.
Bless you.
Because
good luck.
You guys did such a wonderful performance, and James Graham, who we've spoken to on the programme as well, he's just such a brilliant writer.
James is incredible.
How could you fail? Best of luck with it, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Very welcome.
Good luck, Lee. Thank you.
Oh well, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, what a lovely programme. I enjoyed that.
Oh, it's been fantastic, hasn't it? Exhilarating. Gives you a real lift at a time when, you know, you could be a bit down.
Yes.
Various things going on, including the virus, of course, although that is encouraging at the moment. Let's hope things continue to go down and down and down, and perhaps we've seen the end of it. Who knows? But I've really enjoyed that.
Interesting times, aren't they? Very interesting times.
Yeah. At this time next week, we hope we're talking to another old friend of ours, Ross King, don't we?
Now, yes, and what an interesting time he's having at the moment.
Well,
good and bad. I mean, he's in Los Angeles, isn't he? Now,
yeah, based in Los Angeles. He's been at the funeral.
Yes, he's been at
in Texas, I think it is.
Yeah.
So we'll hear all about that from him. But
he does everything. He does the show business out there, so he knows everybody, doesn't he?
Yeah. So it'd be good to catch up with him. He has a flat overlooking the Hollywood sign, I think.
That'd be nice.
Not bad.
Well,
so we'll see you next week.
Yeah, so I'll see you next week and we'll talk to Ross.
Yeah, okay. Bye for now.
Stay safe.
Cheers, girl. Bye.
Bye.